Firstly, I'd like to reflect on the tragic and sombre issue which has impacted us all and our fellow citizens across the world. I'm deeply saddened to stand before you today and reflect and pray and think about the 50 victims who have been murdered in the devastating attack on 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, and the 3 people killed in the attack in the city of Utrecht in the Netherlands. Our thoughts and our prayers continue to be with the friends and the family of those that have lost their loved ones and those that have suffered injuries. These are senseless attacks, and we stand united with the people of New Zealand and the Netherlands in these really dark and concerning times. In moving on, I'd like to take the opportunity to also thank Councillor Hunt, Councillor Stone, Councillor Raw, Councillor Dodds, Councillor Watkins, Councillor Clarkson, Councillor Paul Wilson and Councillor Linley for their hard work and dedication to the people of Salford over the years. There are so many highlights for each of the councillors who have played their part in both serving the people of Salford and transforming the city to what it is today. This is their last full council meeting. I'm sure you'll all join me in wishing them the best for the future in whatever they decide to do. I'd also like to congratulate the winners of the city's first ever Spirit of Salford Awards, the first set of awards for local people who've contributed to our communities across the city in amazing and often selfless ways. Each and every one of those winners, and also those shortlisted, has made an incredible contribution to our city. And it was my privilege to be able to join them in recognition of their achievements at the AJ Bell Stadium on Thursday of last week. They are the spirit of Salford. They are the unsung heroes of this city who tirelessly and often selflessly work for the betterment of the people of this city. To them I owe a deep respect and honour. We've all walked into the town hall this morning to be greeted by a Conservative lobby against the Greater Manchester Plan for Homes, Jobs and the Environment, the redraft Greater Manchester Spatial Framework. And in addition to this, I've acquired a following curious Conservative Party artefact, which has been delivered to Worsley and Boothstown residents. What we have here is a classic example of local Tory misinformation, half-truths and fabrication. The usual fare for the opposition's electioneering campaigns. But I thought that some scrutiny should be applied to just a few of the claims made within their literature. The leaflet claims that the Labour City Mayor and Greater Manchester Mayor want to build on our green fields. It says that the local Conservative councillors have been fighting these and similar proposals over many, many years, and that their most recent opposition was against the 600 homes on the land off Worsley Road. Furthermore, they seem to claim they have single-handedly won the first of 2 battles and now await a decision in the High Court. I'm also sure that many of our officers in the City Council, especially the planning department, will be bemused to see that Salford's Conservative councillors taking sole credit for the council's opposition to the Peel development on the Broad Oak Farm.
Sorry. Point of order. Point of order. As point of order, as Councillor Robin Garrido has not spoken, and as a point of personal explanation refers to a speech he has previously made, could he inform us which speech he is actually referring to that he didn't make?
I didn't say they wouldn't be able to say it. I wasn't saying it couldn't be said. All I was asking was the one line of the sentence, so the monitoring officer can then view whether it's strictly to the regulations.
As Councillor Robin Garrido hasn't spoken in the meeting on this point, then I don't think it can be a point of personal explanation.
Thank you. Nevertheless, the comment has been made. Thanks for the clarity. So it's the Conservative Party councillors and residents. It's not the Labour opposition and Labour councillors in this chamber. It's not the officers of the City Council. It's none of those individuals, is what you've confirmed. That's really useful. So this is opposition which the council, in my opinion, has successfully raised using sound planning arguments against vicious opposition from developers. The reality is that Salford Conservatives have minimal bearing whatsoever on actually fighting developers in the courts. They've put nothing more than a cursory opposition forward on the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework site. And there is no coincidence they raise their issues now with local elections around the corner. They claim to dislike a great many decisions taken by this council, yet they continually fail to raise serious opposition. They have failed for years to provide the people with Salford with an alternative budget. They have failed to provide the public with their own proposals on the Boundary Commission before those proposals had to be submitted. And here they claim to be fighting planning proposals put forward, yet during a period of 3 years, we've barely heard a peep. Council, the fact of the matter is that Salford Conservatives cannot provide serious opposition because they know that more than ever before in local government history, the decisions made by local councils are bound by the policies of their government. Endless cuts, disempowerment, obfuscation, language games and confusion. This is the norm of a Tory government. But whereas the Salford Conservatives have been busy attempting to justify their existence to our voters in the city, what they don't tell the public in their leaflet is that Salford Labour has been battling with the Conservative National Government over its prescriptive National Planning Policy Framework for a great many years. It is the National Planning Policy Framework which places viability over suitability of development and prevents our council acquiring its fair share of contributions to infrastructure from would-be developers. It's the National Planning Policy Framework which enforces our local objectively assessed housing need target in the city of Salford. The same objectively assessed target somehow balances out at 300 housing units per year by the mid-2020s. To enable the Conservative Party to meet their own seemingly arbitrary manifesto target on housing. It is the Conservative government who have told the Greater Manchester Combined Authority that our housing deal from government, which as many of you in this chamber know, includes an £8 million sort of revenue and a £50 million land fund. I do actually have copies of the deal here that we've been trying to negotiate with the Conservative government for your information, to enable us to prioritise brownfield first development. Well, what they tell us is it's contingent. It's contingent on us providing 227,200 homes in Greater Manchester between 2016-17 and 2034-35, and an accelerated delivery rate of 12,375 homes per annum up until 2026. None of this information is in the artifact, is in the leaflet that is going to homes in Worsley and Booztown. It's an omission of what is actually happening in reality. And it is the Conservative government who, when faced with downsized estimates of housing need using the 2016 subnational housing projections from the Office of National Statistics last year, told us not to use the latest projections and to use the previous 2014 subnational housing projections, which interestingly to everyone in this chamber end up delivering a higher number in terms of the objectively assessed housing needs. Come on, tell the people of Salford and Greater Manchester the truth about what is actually happening in reality. And whilst the Conservative government has been chopping and changing the rules, as has happened an awful lot over the past years, it's been myself and Mayor Andy Burnham making representations on behalf of Salford and Greater Manchester residents, not the local Tory group and opposition. So let's talk seriously about the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework and Salford's local plan. When Andy Burnham promised a radical rewrite in May, the issue wasn't just about Greenbelt, although what we've actually delivered, as you all know, is a greater than 50% reduction in the Greenbelt in the latest draft of the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework. This was actually about getting the right homes into the right places across Greater Manchester, making sure that the strategy tied together with our other priorities in Greater Manchester, ensuring tenure mix, employment opportunities, ecological friendly development for the people of Greater Manchester. Greater Manchester is faced with numerous opportunities and challenges over coming decades. A lot of that is as a consequence of Tory austerity and cuts in local government, I might add. And it's those challenges that the GMSF sets out to tackle. We've got a rapidly growing economy, and with that a rapidly growing population. There are new people coming into Greater Manchester who need places to live. There are people living with families in Greater Manchester who want to get onto the housing ladder. So that demand for accommodation doesn't just simply push prices to an unsustainable level by us not building. This phenomena takes place within a context of a nationwide housing crisis. A crisis even acknowledged by the Conservative government in their own white paper, where for many years not enough homes have been built to keep pace with demand in the United Kingdom. This is the product of a failed housing policy nationally, which has seen local authorities and the public sector squeezed out of its once huge role in the delivery of homes up and down this country. But the long and short of it is, even with our current rates of growth, there aren't currently the numbers of houses we need to keep a roof over everyone's head here in Greater Manchester. With 97,000 people on our housing waiting lists across the 10 Greater Manchester local authorities. And in addition to this, our residents are going to need to travel around the city region. And to do so, we'll need to make the most of our transport infrastructure, trains, trams, buses. But our current stock will not be enough to cater for everyone. And the major improvements will be needed to ensure that Greater Manchester isn't faced with gridlock in the future. Government has given us a housing target. You'll know what that is, 201,000 homes. And then there's an 8.6% buffer because of our over-reliance on high-density housing in the urban core of the city region. Apartments, flats, high-rise living. This is a number that currently is non-negotiable. It's a number that must be met using the government's own methodology to calculate our objectively assessed housing need. And if we don't do that, all of our local plans could be faced with legal jeopardy, and local authorities could be faced with planning by appeal. Not only will that cost us dearly as a local authority, already struggling financially, having lost £211 million by the end of this next financial year since 2010, but it would also lead to potentially homes being built absolutely anywhere in Greater Manchester, and that includes on our much loved Greenbelt. And in the midst of all this development, we must also keep existing residents' interests and concerns for their local communities, their geography and their lifestyle central to our considerations within the spatial framework. The culmination of the efforts sees a Greater Manchester spatial framework that far better balances the lives of current residents against the demands of Greater Manchester to grow, to provide new employment and residential development space, and upgrade our infrastructure. It is the extension of a conversation based on over 27,000 responses to the first draft of the spatial framework, as well as an extensive discussion with elected members, experts, planners and other interested parties across Greater Manchester. The current draft is fully integrated with a housing vision document, a precursor for a housing strategy in Greater Manchester to be published later on this year. That means the kind of accommodation as well as the numbers are taken into consideration. The GMSF, as you know, has promised an additional 50,000 affordable homes over the lifetime of the plan. That's a significant chunk of the total 201,000 extra units. But also what we're doing is committing to 30,000 of those 50,000 being social rented properties, truly affordable housing within Greater Manchester. It also combines with our infrastructure framework, with pains taken to reduce the loss of Greenbelt by prioritising higher density housing clustered around transport infrastructure and the urban core of the city region. That is combined with our town centre challenges, regeneration strategies for high streets and town centres across Greater Manchester, bringing life back into our towns, commitments to carbon neutrality by 2038, net zero carbon homes by 2028, a planning presumption against fracking contained within the spatial framework, out of kilter with what is specified in the government's own national planning policy framework, providing much needed safeguards against the freewheeling destruction of our environment and safeguards for the future of the people of Greater Manchester. And the new plan also provides a strategic overview and analysis of our key green infrastructure, parks, cycling paths, walking, off the back of an already announced commitment to invest £160 million in cycling and walking over the next 4 years across Greater Manchester. In every sense, we have seen an improvement to the original offer to the public and the residents of Greater Manchester, established through an evidence-based approach to delivering planning within Greater Manchester. And within the tight regulatory framework provided by the Tories, your representatives, council officers here and across Greater Manchester have simply jumped backflips and somersaults to provide the best possible deal for Greater Manchester. Our infrastructure, as many of us know, is crumbling. We need to get the right amount of investment to realise our ambitions here in Greater Manchester. Investment that all of us know is really difficult to come by because it relies on central government decision making. The Tories in Stockport, in Trafford and Bolton are now campaigning to remove themselves from the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework to protect their green belt. A movement which would interestingly see those areas having to actually build more homes than they've currently been allocated. And in their opportunistic attempts to score cheap points in many respects against Labour in the run-up to the local elections, the Tories are leading their own voters down a blind path. And that's a familiar story when we look at what's happening nationally. Following Speaker John Bercow's decision not to allow a third meaningful vote on Theresa May's Brexit deal, we are facing unprecedented uncertainty over the future of this country under a Conservative government. And despite promises to end austerity, the government is offering absolutely nothing to the people of this city. Nothing that is other than Brexit bribes to our MPs to convince them to back her shambolic negotiations. A few weeks ago, the nation was appalled at the offer made by the Chancellor Philip Hammond, the Stronger Towns Fund, to pay off Northern MPs to vote for them in the Chamber. The amount was a paltry 1.6 billion to last until 2026, with 320 million of that to go to the West Midlands to shore up the Tory Metro Mayor's support for Andy Street. This was a bribe from its conception all the way through to its delivery. This government does nothing other than deliver cash to friends of the Conservatives to keep themselves in power. This is the shocking mentality of our governing party today. Thank you very much.